Welcome to this video series on renovating a marine steam plant. This is the third video in the series and covers making the feedwater tank. Making a feedwater tank follows the same process that Keith Appleton uses. I'll put a link to Keith's videos in the description. The feedwater tank starts with cutting a piece of 2 5/8 inch diameter copper pipe to a length of 4 inches. After cutting, I check the pipe to make sure the ends are square. Then I get a piece of 1/8 inch brass plate and mark and center punch it for the center of the tube. This will be the lid of the feedwater tank. I blew the lid with Sharpie, set up a divider to 1 3/8 inch and scribe a circle 2 3/4 inch diameter. This will leave a lip on the lid of the feedwater tank that overhangs the copper tube. I then go over to the bandsaw and cut out the circular brass piece. When bandsawing, I stay clear of the scribed line. Then, it's over to the mill to set up the lid for drilling. Parallels are used to support the piece in the machine vise. I use a center drill first to center the hole I'm drilling. Next, I go through with a 3/16 inch drill. Finally, I go through with a 1/4 inch drill. I drill a 1/4 inch hole as I have a mandrel that's a 1/4 inch in diameter for holding the lid in the lathe chuck. The lid is held in a mandrel, which is then set up in the 3-jaw chuck of my lathe. I then turn the rim of the lid until it is concentric and to the line I scribed earlier. It's important to go slowly with this operation and take small cuts. I took 5/1000 cuts to avoid the lid grabbing and slipping in the mandrel. I face the lid to create a step, first by cutting to 1/16 inch depth. Again, I take small cuts to avoid the piece grabbing and slipping in the mandrel. The step will hold the lid onto the feedwater tank and stop it falling off. Next, I machine the step to diameter so that the lid will fit on the copper tube. Once the step is complete, I clean up the lid with a file before removing it from the lathe and mandrel. To make a handle for the lid, I first face a piece of hex brass bar stock. I used hex as I do not have any round bar stock at the moment. Next, I turn down the diameter of the bar to a 1/4 inch for a length of 0.15 inches. This creates a plug that goes into the 1/4 inch hole drilled in the lid. I then round the hex bar for a length of 3/4 inch. I use my eye to determine the final diameter of the handle. Measuring it afterwards, it's 0.362 inches in diameter. Now, it's time to part off the handle. I used a 1/16 inch parting tool for this operation. I put the handle back in the chuck, this time held by the plug end, so that I can profile it. I started with a round-nosed tool, roughly in the middle of the handle. I profiled the end of the handle with a file. You must be very careful when filing a piece in a running way. I filed the handle until the end was rounded. Here's a photo of the feedwater tank showing the tank, lid and handle. So far the tank is looking pretty good. I cut a piece of 1/8" brass plate and squared it in the milling machine. I then held the plate in a 4-jaw self-centering chuck. With a parting tool I cut a groove in the plate the same diameter as the tank tube. This will allow the tank to sit in the base and form a well for solder to flow into. I made a bush out of brass that will solder into the tank. This will be the water outlet. The bush was tapped 1/4 inch 40 TPI. Here's a couple of videos showing the bush being drilled and tapped. Next, it was time to soft solder the tank together. I gave all components a good clean with a Scotch-Brite pad. I used solder paste to coat the bottom inner of the tank, applied a coat to the bush, and inserted it in a hole in the tank. Then it's just a matter of applying an even heat to the components until the solder melts and flows. The video shows the handle being soldered into the lid of the feedwater tank. Here's a photo of the finished feedwater tank. I will paint the tank off camera and it will be fitted to the steam plant in a future episode. So that's the feedwater tank completed. Next, I'll be moving on to modifications to the steam plant. There will be more videos of this project posted soon. Please like and subscribe to support my channel. Thank you.